Alright YouTube, so we are back of course to talk about Final Fantasy VII kind of as a whole, because we're talking about the remake and also the original in this video. So in this video we were asking the question of whether or not you should play the original Final Fantasy VII before you play the remake. So this is a discussion I've wanted to have for a little while now, and I've actually seen some Reddit posts on the subreddit I'm usually on within the past maybe week or two, but actually looking online, there's posts going back as far as like last year, 2019. It's probably posts going back as far as probably 2015 when the game was first revealed, I imagine. So yeah, looking into it, I did find a Reddit post from 4 years ago, which means it's going on 5 years, which is probably around the time the game got revealed, asking whether or not they should play the original first. So this is a question people have had ever since the remake got revealed, more or less, so I figured we'd give our thoughts on it today. And we're going to look at it from both sides. We're not just going to have one opinion here, but as for the yes, you should play it first, for starters, it's one of the most important games of all time. Obviously, everybody knows that. It's the game that popularized and exploded JRPGs in the West. We're not going to sit here and go through the entire history of Final Fantasy VII. There are videos and people out there that can do it much better than I ever could have. A video I could recommend, though, is Maximilian Dood's video about why the game is so important to so many people. I recommend watching that. I don't want to just repeat what he says in that video. So the historical impact of the game aside, one of the other reasons why you should get the game is because it's available on pretty much every platform. As long as you have a modern gaming system, you can play Final Fantasy VII. An Xbox One, a PS4, a Nintendo Switch. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you can play it. If you have a PC, you can play it. You can buy a physical copy of the game on eBay. I'm not sure how much they go for. I know whenever it first dropped on Xbox One, I bought it, and it was a random price of like $16.99 or $17.99. So you can get the game digitally for less than $20. That might be cheaper now than it was then, or cheaper on other platforms. So if your reason for not playing Final Fantasy VII was that you just didn't have access to it, it's available on pretty much everything now, so that's not really an excuse anymore, and it's cheap. And lastly, what I think might be the most important reason for you to play Final Fantasy VII is that there's going to be things in the remake you're just not going to understand if you didn't play the original game. So a small quick example I could give you is this slide right here from the intro video that we got recently. So to somebody that hasn't played the original game, this means absolutely nothing, but to those of us that are fans of Final Fantasy VII, we instantly recognize it as the slide from the Sector 6 slums. Again, that's just a small quick example, but coming off the back of that, you also have just the idea of seeing things that were in the original Final Fantasy VII being transitioned into what a modern game looks like. So something like these two images being the exact same location. These are both the Sector 7 slums. One's the original game, one's the remake. And if you never played the original, you can't really appreciate the work they're putting into this location. And that's going to go for pretty much every single location in the remake project, right? Because it's all going to be updated versions of the locations from the original game. So you're going to get to see what it looked like in the original, and then get to see what it looks like in the remake. And for those of us that played the original game, pretty much every time we walk into a location that existed from the original game, we're probably going to take a minute just to walk around and explore and just appreciate what it looks like. Now onto some story-related stuff, so a bit of a spoiler warning, I suppose, if you didn't play the original game. But you have things like Cloud being haunted by Sephiroth, right? We've seen that a lot in the trailers. If you've never played Final Fantasy VII, or you don't know the story of Final Fantasy VII, you have no idea why that's even happening. And it's why I've said in the past that I believe there's going to be some sort of a Nibelheim incident flashback when it comes to this game, for one, the newer players that need to know what's going on, but also from a story perspective. Why has this guy been haunting us? Why is he following us around all game? You kind of have to explain what's going on here in this hallucination scene right here. Why is there a burning building behind Sephiroth? You need to explain that. Also, the simple fact that Sephiroth's even appearing in this game that is set during the Midgar segment from the original game. If you played the original game, you would know that there is no Sephiroth up until the very, very end of the Midgar segment. So you're not even going to understand the changes from the original game. Something like the Watchman of Fate. These are things that did not exist in the original game, and we don't even know what the purpose is for the remake just yet. But if you were to go back and play the original game sometime after the remake, you're probably going to be expecting the Watchman of Fate at some point in time, and they're not going to show up because they did not exist there. So it's interesting to play the original first, and then see the subtle changes or the big changes they might be making when it comes to the remake project. So on to, I guess, the reasons why you shouldn't play it first. It's kind of hard for me to come up with reasons for this, if I'm honest. But the main one, of course, is spoilers. If you play the original game, you're going to know the gist of the entire story for the remake. They're going to change some stuff here and there for the old school players, but the big story beats should be roughly the same. And that could kind of ruin your experience for the remake project, potentially. I'm not going to give away any spoilers in this video, but throughout the story there's going to be twists and turns and obviously deaths along the way, and that's going to hit a lot harder the first time, right? If you played the original game, you're going to kind of expect some of these things happening when it comes to the remake, so it's not really going to hurt as much. It'll probably still affect us original players because we're seeing it in a much better quality, high definition, voice acting, things like that. It's still going to hurt, but not as much as if it's happening for the first time. The only issue with not playing the original game is that a lot of the important stuff doesn't happen until later in the story, and since this game's Midgar only, a lot of that shouldn't really take place in this first remake game, so you're going to have to avoid playing the original game and avoid spoilers for years to come. And really the only other thing I could think of other than spoilers and kind of, knowing the story of the remake is that you're going to have the unique perspective of playing the remake first. That's something a lot of us can't say. I'm not necessarily sure why or how that would be beneficial, but again, you have the unique perspective of playing all the remake games first and then being able to go back and play the original eventually and kind of comparing the two and having that perspective of, I played this modern version of the game, let's go back and play the old school original version. And again, not a lot of us can do that out there. So that's sort of my thoughts on whether or not you should play the original first or the remake first. As for an answer overall, what I think you should do, it's hard not to be biased here because obviously I love Final Fantasy VII. I've played it a lot throughout the years, but I do think that you should play the original first simply because you can appreciate the remake more, even though you're going to know the story, the gist of what's happening. But I feel like you would appreciate the remake more if you play the original because there's going to be references to things from the original game, also the expanded universe if you wanted to branch out and play before Crisis, Crisis Core, possibly even Dirge of Cerberus. There's going to be references to things you're not going to understand. Like with the Tokyo Game Show trailer, when they mention Avalanche being a part of Wutai, that makes no sense to you if you didn't play the original, but that's a shocking thing that didn't exist in the original game either. And I just feel like if you understand the Final Fantasy VII story, you can truly appreciate how good the remake is going to be. But that's just my thoughts on it. So I'll pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know I've had a few people comment on my videos that have never played Final Fantasy VII, so I'm kind of curious what their plans are. If you're somebody that has not played the original, are you going to hold out and play the remake first? Are you going to play all parts of the remake first before you ever play the original? Or do you plan on hopping to the original sometime before release? Leave your thoughts more in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay updated with more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid. I'm my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.